Welcome back. This is the Smallbrain Records Podcast number 12. It's Mackenzie and Emmanuel here. We're going to be talking about composition in a short period of time versus composition over a long period of time, and the different benefits of both. And we're just going to get into it open-endedly. So I know before, one time you asked me, because I produced my last music, I produced it all in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of just like pumping out tracks left and right, and then you were like, oh, but like, what if you sit on it and you know, give it more time? Yeah. And I think that's how this conversation kind of sparked between us. Yeah, I think I've you know, since we started talking about that, I've been able to kind of pinpoint a few pros and cons to both sides of things. In that particular case, because I was producing, you know, starting a track and finishing a track in a matter of a couple hours. Yeah. Structure-wise, in that flow, I feel like I was able to really channel a specific intention in a moment, and to be able to allow for whatever it was I was feeling in that moment, or however it was I was feeling, to really come through in that song, or in multiple songs. Because I find that sometimes I'll start a track and I'll wait a couple days, or maybe even a couple weeks between starting it and finishing it, and it no longer feels relevant for me now. I think that that's particular for myself, because I really like to express what I'm feeling in that moment. But something as well that I noticed with the album was that I produced the tracks, and then I must have listened to them over 100 times between the time they were finished and the time that they were released. And so it allowed me a lot of opportunity to iron out all of the small details that maybe weren't so great in the original composition. So I guess there was short term on the overall structure and whatever, and then long term in the actual editing and changing things and mixing process. So
that's what I mean. That when you say a couple of days after the song or the track doesn't seem relevant anymore. Oh, sorry. But when you listen to the track, I mean, I don't think it's about I could have done this better, or I could have done that better. But it seems like you want to express something that's immediate, like you feel happy or sad, and you kind of get in the mood, and then you just do the track, right?
Yeah.
So up until which point, like you say you do the structure. What does that mean? Like, do you record audio, or it's just MIDI tracks, or?
Well, I mean more so that, and I guess this is particular for the newest album. I composed all of the parts and structured all of the parts that I composed for it in one short period of time session. And then later on, I allowed myself to listen to it a lot, to be able to edit all the little things, all the taking out one note here and there, and kind of, I guess the real producing part of it was the listening to it over and over again. So I guess most of the work was done in one session, if you will.
So when you listen, like, what's your process when you listen over and over again to the track? Like, what's happening? What, do you change things? Do you record on top of things that already exist, or do you just record everything and then read out the structure?
Well, I listen to it in a lot of different contexts. Like, I listen to it a lot walking to work and back. You know, I'd start my day listening to it. Always try to have fresh ears. Try to listen to it in different emotional states, different whatever, you know. Yeah. And as a result, I found that I was able to really find when, you know, the music itself was pushing outside of its own expression into, like, me trying to say something. And I feel like maybe we've talked about this before, but the way that I impose myself on music, I feel like I can detect that. You know, I can, like, if I'm listening to it and I am trying hard to do something, but it's not saying the same thing as the rest of the song, those things I can pull out with fresh ears. or also like in general, I guess when I listen to the track over and over again, it allows me a lot of time to be able to figure out what would be best and what isn't best for the track itself, which on some level is subjective and on some level holds some sort of objectivity because it, I'm producing the song so that it expresses itself to its fullest potential, I guess,
Yeah.
and so what that means for me, what it means for myself to be able to detect what should and shouldn't be in the track, I guess is part of the accumulation of experience from listening to a multitude of tracks and creating music for a long time.
Yeah, and like it's funny. Like sometimes when I listen to some music and I hear a little thing, a little detail, and I'm wondering how the composer did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was especially true with all the glitchy stuff. Like the loops that are becoming smaller and smaller. And like I'm sure there are some kids on Ableton who figure this out in minutes, and but to me it takes a long time, and then it takes just to understand how it's done, and then how to kind of I would say master the process, but I wouldn't say master in the same sense that, especially on this kind of things like the glitchy stuff, I think everyone does it their own way, and it kind of sounds similar, but not exactly the same. And it has, like, to me, it has some sort of element of chaos in that. So I use the chaos pad a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is, and this is one of the reasons why I usually take a longer time to really get the music out, is I record a lot of material. Like today, I was working on that jam that I just posted on YouTube, and I thought it was a great track, so I figured I just record it properly, multi-track and everything. And I recorded, like, for example, the vocal samples, the vocal loop. I recorded it 4 times. One time with the chaos pad, one time without, one time with the chaos pad but less elements, one time, and then it takes some time, and it's the same. It's listening to the track over and over again, but I don't go out of my studio. I rarely go out of my studio ever, basically. And I listen to the track over and over and try to decide, all right, at this particular point, I'm going to use that element. And that other point, I'm going to use that element, and I'm going to change it a little bit. Maybe put it to the left or the right, or maybe put some delay. And I need to listen to the track over and over with the small changes, just to be able to hear them in context. Mm-hmm. And of course, like the process of beginning the track, it starts from, I'm not sure where it starts from, but you kind of get in the zone and stuff comes out.
Yeah.
For some reason. And it's very immediate. But at the beginning, like when I started to record 10 or 15 years ago, it was also very immediate, and I wasn't able to keep working on the track the next day and maybe for 2 days or a week, or maybe sometimes even 2 weeks. And it felt, like you said, not relevant anymore. So I had to kind of get it out in one session, more or less. Sometimes I would do the mixing the next morning, but the track was already recorded. But right now, like, there was always like moments in the tracks, and when I was thinking, oh, maybe I could have done just this small detail a little bit better, And it's not about doing it perfectly, but it's about doing it the best you can. Like, I knew I could have done this one detail better. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I didn't do it was because I didn't really bother. Like, it was good enough.
Yeah.
It was. And right now, like, when I began again to record more seriously, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, I don't remember. I told myself I'm not going to do that anymore. Like if I hear something, even if that requires half a day's work, I'm gonna spend half a day's work, even if it is for 2 bars. But if I know I can do it, then I do it. And
Totally. Yeah.
it's fun because the track then remains relevant during the next day and the next day and the next day. And it was like it's it was exploring something that presented itself to me at one point, but rather than just let it express itself, I felt I began to explore that thing. So it would put me in a certain mood for, all the amount of time I needed to get the track done. But at the same time, it would allow me to really test myself and see where I could go. Like if I had one small detail I wanted to polish, then, all right, I think I'm able, but am I really able to do it? And then you find out you're able, and then the next track you listen a little further and you explore a little bit more, and then you spend a little bit more time. It depends on the track. Some tracks take a few days. Like I cannot do one in one day anymore. Or I can do it every now and again, but most of the time, like I need to sleep on it. I need to really. It's like an idea. When you're passionate about something, when something happens, like you have your reaction, and like if you have to take a decision, for example, if you sleep on a decision, you take usually a better decision. And I feel it's the same time. If you have an idea, if you have something that comes to you, if you sleep on it, if you think about it, if you really dig into it, that idea, and I found out, I found new things about myself during that process, and the music I think it got better, it got deeper, and like it really became something important. At that point, I really realized it was something important because I felt I was exploring, like, I cannot really define, but it's a journey. Like one track, it's a journey. I'm not the same person once it's done.
Absolutely. I suppose it depends on what the track is and what the project is, in the first place. And at the same time, I think it's instinctual for both of us to make the decision to, call it when when it feels done. It's like when I'm producing and I have something done in a short period of time and I listen to it, there's part of me that goes like, this is great. I'm happy with where this is, and I don't have anything I want to change from it. And then sometimes when I'm finishing up the session, I'm like, okay, well, there's still like a lot of stuff I want to do, so I'm just gonna like close my computer for now, take a break, come back to it tomorrow when I have a chance or whatever. And when I come back, I'm always my fresh ears are always just like, okay, there's that, and immediately I can just dissect all the things that need to be changed out of what I was already set on.
Yeah.
But I feel like depending on the project itself, sometimes it calls for simplicity. I know for myself, like a huge influence on the last album I released, and a huge influence on me in general was Cloud Kicker. I don't know if you ever listened to Cloud Kicker, but
no.
This dude Ben Sharp, I think he lives in the U.S. somewhere.
Yeah.
But his album Let Yourself Be Huge is like it's kind of like primarily like a looping album in that it starts off with a guitar and then he layers more guitar and then he'll layer his drums and layer whatever, and for the most part it's kind of like loops. And I'd say, if anything, actually, that album was maybe like one of the biggest influences on my album, as far as perspective goes. And at the same time, when I listen to it, it's very obvious to me that like he sat down and he was playing guitar. He's like, yeah, that's a sweet loop. And then he recorded another loop, and he's like, yeah, that's a sweet loop too. And I know that like better takes, like you can always do better takes, but there's a certain something that comes in the moment of creation itself. Yeah. And something that I've found that I've lost when I've overdone it. Like I've produced a track, let's say, and been stoked about it, and then been like, but I can just work on it forever. I can just make my loops better. I can make everything better. And as a result, I ended up just completely ruining the track.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so I feel like you know, at least on the guitar looping lo-fi stuff I did, I know that like when I set the mic down and I played, if it was like not perfect, if it was imperfect, but generally had good feel, I'm totally okay with the notes aren't exactly all crystal clear and perfectly articulated in the optimal way. If also because I like that I like those little things that make a track unique. You know, like those little like, you know, if you're the listener and you listen, you go, oh, there was a thing there. You know, because it changes it from. I guess it's those little human elements to me that that can spice something really well, and I find that a lot of those human elements come in short productions, or I guess spur of the moment creation, if you will, like whether it's producing or improvising or whatever, you know, like the track I have, Karmic Predicament, the guitar solo in that track I just wrote in maybe 10 minutes, and then I recorded it, and the first take I recorded like was solid because I wrote it on the spot, practiced it, and then it was solid, and I was happy with it. And even then, like all of the guitar stuff, if you listen to it, there's room for improvement on all of it. And at the same time, I find it's a nice character, you know?
Yeah, I would agree, but the thing is, like, I feel you can, like, it's important, I think, when you record, but it also has to do with the material you use. Like if it's a loop from a vinyl, it's not the same. Like you don't have as much control over it, and maybe it expresses something that you relate to. And I don't make much music with loops. I enjoy doing it, but I'm not very good at it. But I guess it's a different thing. Like when you're with synth and smaller like samples, like short, almost like drum kits and stuff like that. Like when you record, and that's also why I really like to use hardware, because as you record, you turn some knobs and you play like an instrument, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have this human element, but like I feel you can like. When you have this human element, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's detrimental to the track for some reason. Maybe something's too loud, maybe something kind of distracting, and you can keep the good, like what you decide is the good human element, the human error. Like it happens all the time. You can keep it, and then you can work on the other smaller elements just to keep the best from the track. Like. I feel like I record like the more the better. Like I double almost everything, the synth, and I do with effects, without reverb and everything. And then out of all these takes, but they are still performed live, like knobs and everything. And from all these takes, I try to get them, from all these human errors and elements and random events, just take the best of all the takes that you have, maybe superpose them. Like you can do like, and this, like it's like a sculpture. You take raw material and you shape it. The first day you say, all right, this is what I want it to look like, and you have this image in your head, and you're going to go into that direction. So you start chipping away a little bit. And then as you chip away, like the vision that you have, it may shift a little bit because of, all these elements that you didn't foresee and that happened during the recording. And then it shifts, but it's still in the same general direction. And for example, that jam, it has a lot of bass. And as I recorded, like every day, today I spent the whole day on that, just on basically the drums, like from morning up until recently. And it was, I didn't even bother with the bass. I just started a little bit trying the bass, and maybe I'm going to change it from the jam and whatever. But it's like I just put everything, and then I chip away, and I look, what it tells me, how it wants to look like, and then I keep chipping away, and polishing, and maybe sometimes I have to re-record because I chipped too much, and and it takes the time it takes to get to that vision, and sometimes. Like usually I can tell, I start a lot of tracks, and sometimes they just don't go anywhere, and after an hour or two, I just, do something else. But I can tell after an hour or two, I can tell if I can finish it, and if I have that, finish line, that goal, and if I know I can do it, I do it, and whatever the work, like. If I have to spend, like I remember there was one track on my next EP. I think I spent 2 days on one synth sound. You cannot, like, I can hear it, but if you listen, you can never tell it's there. I had to hear it like as I had it in my, and it forced me to learn how to make that sound. I believe I can make it, but I'm not sure. I try, and. For the next track, I have that much more skill, at my disposal. So yeah, like it's a process, and it's a journey. Like, and I hope, like sometimes I tell myself, like some people might think when I listen to my music, like it's nonsense. Like it's random. Everything is random, and it comes from randomness. A lot of it does, but once everything is like, it's really a lot of work just to polish everything and make sure that from the randomness you get something that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens in one day, like less so as a
I guess this kind of brings our attention to the reality that like everybody has their own creative process.
Yeah, and there's no wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's good and bad in both of the things, I guess. Or I guess I don't want to say so much that there's bad in both the things, so much as that there's good in both options, because there's good in short term and good in long term. And I guess bad in long term or bad in short term would be maybe you miss something, or maybe you're rushing, but it also depends on the creation itself,
And, yeah, I mean, when you listen to like we had on first episode, we had DJ Food, Strictly Kev from Ninja Tune, and the album, like the early DJ Food album, and all the hip hop from the early 90s, late 80s. It's basically just loops with sometimes just looped parts of old tracks, and it sounds like new music, and it sounds amazing, and it's perfectly, like, it's deep. And sometimes you listen to Wagner, and it's extremely complex, and it's just as deep, and it doesn't have to be complicated or simple. It doesn't have to doesn't like you can have great music, and you can have also, like, sometimes when you listen to music that comes from very young music students from music schools, like, it's very complex and complicated, and maybe I'm just
No, I know what you mean. Actually, it's almost like
it's a little bit cold.
It's more technical than it is expressive.
Yeah.
I've noticed that too. That some people come out with all of the tools, and they use all of the tools to demonstrate their ability to use the tools, and somehow it doesn't hit home because it doesn't have that essence. I guess that expressive essence that is not trying to show your skills, but more so trying to create something, to allow something to create itself, if you will. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been to a music school personally. I know some people who have. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like at the school, like they need a way to quantify.
Quantify is the perfect word for it. I agree. Yeah, it's
stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's, I think that's why I'm like happy I didn't study music in school, but I studied sound engineering, because I feel like sound engineering is equipping yourself with the tools to make music. And for me, I've taught myself how to do music.
Yeah.
And then equipping yourself with tools to make music, you have to then teach yourself outside of that how to break the rules and how to, whatever. So it's like, it's I think I've noticed a lot that people that study music get really caught up in the like, okay, well, how am I going to make money off this now that I have the skills? I can give lessons, I can whatever. Or when they make music, like you said, maybe it's very cold, if you will. But then through that later on, in the end of the day, bigger picture, I find that once people kind of get used to just creating with the knowledge they have, they learn to like just break the structure itself and allow the music to come through their experiences and whatever,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say music is a language. I'm not sure it's just so simple, but I like the language analogy in the way that when you're a baby, when you're an infant, you learn how to speak by speaking to your parents, and through your culture, you learn how to speak, and then you go to school and you learn how a language works, like the technical aspect. But still, like you can use some of that to improve your speech and your speaking ability, but you also have, cultural slang, and that's and you have all your influence and all the way that you speak, and that makes you, that makes your speech yours, and these are intangibles. You cannot quantify them. You cannot define the rules. You have people who invent or distort their own language. Like, I'm French, and what makes French language so difficult, and I believe you speak French a little bit also.
Yeah.
And, what makes French so difficult for foreigners to learn is that there are many, like, a word doesn't always mean what it means.
Totally.
You can use many words to say many things, and I'm sure it's more or less the same in every language, but I feel from the languages I know that French is especially that way. So I think it's the same with music. You can use a sample from 70s soul music, ballad, and when a man loves a woman, that kind of stuff, and you can turn it into a trap beat.
Yeah.
You can take one word and turn it in and say something completely, like when people say, "Oh, it's the shit." Usually, it may not always seem it's excrement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It can
exactly.
mean, oh, it's bad, or it's good, or it's whatever, or it's, oh, here's what I give to you. It's the shit. Then there are many ways. Like, it's important, however, to understand, I believe, the technique of language, because it allows you to say more complex things and to say them maybe in a more beautiful way, and to learn, the history of the language you speak. And in that way, I like to make the parallel between music and language. But it only goes so far. So there's another point we discussed about discussing what makes good music, because it's not the amount of time you put in, it's not the amount of complexity you put in. Like, what makes, according to you, what makes good music?
Well, maybe we've touched upon this briefly in another podcast. I think maybe we did, but there's a certain, intangible quality to good music that listeners connect with. And I guess the reality is that music at the end of the day is something that people consume. It's not necessarily just on a product level, but it's something we take into ourselves. It's something we absorb into ourselves, and as a result, we all have our own personal flavors, personal preferences, and whatever. And so when that intangible expression creates this experience of resonance with you. You yourself, you resonate with the music, and then you feel drawn to it. You feel influenced by it. You feel inspired by it. I think when you experience that on some level, that's what would create good music, if you will, because it's both subjective on some levels and objective on other levels, depending on who you're asking. Like if you're asking someone that's classically trained, maybe to them, objective good music is something that follows this formula. But if you're to ask someone that isn't, maybe it's it helps them get through hard times. Maybe that's the thing that they're looking for. So I think good music is kind of this subjective resonance that we share with the music itself. For myself, there's a whole lot of stuff I listen to that I don't compose. I don't write metal anymore, but I've been listening to a lot of metal recently. Or sometimes when I'm feeling sad, I'll listen to pop punk. Because I resonate with the expression and maybe not even the lyrics. Maybe it's just the music itself makes me feel comfortable. So I guess the reason I find music good, some of the things that I like is I like to be really stimulated by what's going on. I like to be listening to it and to know that the person that was behind the creation of this really knows what they're doing, and I think that's why I'm drawn towards music that is full of textures, full of, even then, the reason I find that good is because I like to make music with textures. So when I listen to something with textures, I'm like, this person gets it. And when I'm like, this person gets it, for me, that's good. And at the same time, like you were saying before, like about your music, well, your music's really great and it's spontaneous and it's like I think you said people could understand it as random. And at the same time, it's not so much that it's random; it's telling a story. It's not telling a story through the format of loops, through the format of something a little bit more quantified and tangible, but it's telling a story through a full track, over the course of 5 minutes or whatever. And for a lot of people, because it's not so tangible, it might not be considered good, because to them, what their ear is looking for is patterns, and patterns are easy to dissect and easy to consume, because you go, okay, I know what's going to come next, and I know the vibe, and I resonate with it, and I'm familiar with it, and familiarity is key. But this is, general public, whereas for me, I can appreciate the storytelling of the random, So I think in the core, it really comes down to, who we are as humans on an individual level, that makes music something that's good or whatever. But
it's interesting. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try and rephrase what you just said, just to make sure I got the correct point. So, as you would define it, good music would be qualified, like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Exactly.
I'm not sure if I agree. On some level, I don't know, maybe if I disagree, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure that I'm right to disagree. Let me try and explain. Especially in France, I don't know in America, but especially in France, we have a lot of popular music, and you're familiar with the 4 chords of pop music, right?
Yeah.
So for people who are listening who may not be familiar, it's a series of chords, harmonic pattern that is used and overused in a lot of pop songs and very popular music, and it's basically always the same chord pattern, and it's very popular, and like especially in France, like almost like it's crazy because I think almost every music that's popular right now in France uses that pattern, and to me, especially when you listen to music from what they call the show business, like very pop, like ultra popular, like with like major recording companies and stuff like that. I don't know because I haven't been there, but it seems to me like they're trying to put out a product that will succeed commercially.
Yeah,
which is fine. Like you can do good music by doing that, but feels to me like it's so formulaic. It doesn't seem like in many instances, not all, but in many instances, it doesn't seem like anyone really cared about making good music.
yeah. They just wanted to make a product.
Yeah, and that I would qualify as bad music, but to some people, it would speak.
And it's like the spot for some people, Some people want to hear that four chord,
And when you go to a club, for example, a place that plays like people go on Saturday night, Friday night, whatever, and they play like ultra popular music, and people are dancing and they are behaving like through that music. With that music, they're behaving in ways that are very liberating and spontaneous, and they feel good doing that. So in that sense, it would make it good music, and it would at least make it useful music, meaningful music to some extent, but to the same extent as you can go eat fast food and it will nourish you. You won't be hungry anymore after eating it. But in the same way that eating nothing but fast food will slowly kill your body and your physical body, I'm wondering if only listening to bad music would kill your soul or your spirit or something.
I think
or numb you to the mundane life,
Yeah, I think you and I don't disagree on, like, I don't think necessarily that you disagree with my point, but more so that when I say good, it's more so like, do you enjoy it? But not so much like, what good does this bring to the world? Because I can agree with you totally that, like, the way I experience it, I feel like the four chord kind of formulaic thing. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like that brings necessarily good in the world so much as it brings money into people's pockets that want to make money off the music industry. And it
still allows people to, let go of the stress, tension.
So I guess because you and I like to make music that has meaning. It has depth to it, and I think that for both of us, we kind of strive for that. Strive for music that has depth that we can pass along through the music to the listener, and that's kind of our core drive. Whereas like pop music, maybe not so much is about that, or maybe it is on some level, but more so so people can let go and have fun in a club. So
it's like a company. You do something that works because it works, and why take any risks? Like some pop artists do take risks, but some don't because it just works.
But,
sorry.
No problem. I guess I just want to clarify that we're using good in two different ways here. Good as in like, does it bring something to the world? And then good as in like, is it something that people can enjoy? And I think that when it comes down to it, all music is good in that, like it's subjective if you appreciate it or not based on your own personal preferences, just like anything inherently could be. And at the same time, whether something has goodness in it,
Yeah.
whether something contains that goodness within it is a different story, because that's almost a question of like intention and I don't want to say morality, but
Yeah.
potentially morality as well. And you know, I guess also it kind of connects to the reality that there is really an industry that is founded on the business side of music, and there's a ton of people participating solely in that. And then there's a whole other part of the industry that's people expressing themselves and people just creating because they like to create and letting the creation find its way in the industry. Or, you know, and I think that you and I kind of both would rather create genuine art and allow for the industry to make room as opposed to create artificial art that the industry's already prepared to take, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're trying to do with Tommy and Smallbrain.
Exactly.
To kind of create that platform and to allow that kind of music to grow and find ways to make it work. And
exactly.
It's been tough, but it's been fun, you know? And,
yeah, absolutely, man.
And that also, like, I wanted to keep going on to the good music, because sometimes, like, I always say, and I've probably said it on the podcast, I don't enjoy listening to the Beatles, but I can recognize it's good music.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, it's like how I feel about almost all 80s one-hit wonder tracks and all you know, classic rock tracks. It's like I appreciate them. I love them as far as it goes. Like, yeah, they're classics. They're great. And I will forever have love for those tracks. And at the same time, I really don't want to listen to them because I've heard them so many times. You know, so it's like they're good, and I actually just don't want to hear them because I've heard them too much, and I've had enough. You know.
Yeah. You moved on.
Yeah. So and at the same time, it's the same thing. It's like you know, my friend that I live with here, he'll show me a track and be like, you know, like, what do you think? Or sometimes he's like, you might not like this, but like whatever. And my response usually is like, I appreciate the artistry of what's going on, and at the same time, it's not my particular flavor. You know, it's like I appreciate all kinds of music, and at the same time, I have my own flavors that I like. Yeah. Just like I can appreciate good cuisine, whether I personally would eat it or not, or whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have my own preference of what I like to eat. You know.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, most definitely. And I think that's important, and it's also okay to enjoy fast food sometimes.
Exactly, it's balance. You know, it's a balance of all things. You know, it's
at some
as far as I'm concerned, it's about not being too attached to a specific way of being and kind of just being harmonious with your intuition and with yourself. You know.
But yeah, when it comes to appreciation of music, like, it seems to me like when you are say uneducated on music at all, like you just listen to the most mundane pop music, and it's good. It takes you to that one place, you know, that you feel better about yourself, about your life, and it makes you feel good or better and whatever. But it seems like as a musician and someone who really appreciate discovering new music all the time, like, you kind of get to understand a little bit more of music the more you listen, and then you get your mind open to more like deeper but more complex music, like stuff that you might not be able to appreciate now, but you may love in 2 years, 3 years. And I think I'm afraid there's a trap there, especially as a composer, like to get to a point where I do music that's so obscure that really doesn't connect with anyone anymore.
Honestly, I feel like that's where I started with producing. And I don't know if you've had a chance to dig through my old SoundCloud at all, but if you like start at the top and go down, it just gets more and more obscure in that, like, the original stuff I was making. It's, you know, me and my buddy that I started producing with, we called our project Guilt Trip, because we felt awful for making it. It was so uncomfortable, unsettling. Sounds like scratching a fork on a plate with like noodles mixes, so it sounds like it's on your head, kind of thing. Like, and then as time went on, I kind of took that like abstractness and I tried to put it in some sort of structure, and like slowly out of that obscureness, I kind of evolved into something a little bit more tangible that also I resonate with.
Yeah.
And now, full circle, I'd like to incorporate some of the obscureness from the music I made in the past into the slightly more tangible stuff that I make now. But I think that that's also a balancing act. Like for myself, sometimes I guess as a producer, listening to the music that you compose and being able to determine what is best and not best for the music, it takes a particular ear, to filter out and find that balance between obscure and tangible, and I think there definitely is a type of music that's obscure enough that only a very small percentage of people will dig it. But it's like I said, it's like there's almost a tipping point. It's like at some point, it's obscure. Hey, it's art. You can do whatever you want. That's the sweet part. You can do whatever you want. Whether or not people will understand it or want to try to understand it or relate to it, that's a different story. But at the same time, art is art, expression is expression, whatever.
Yeah.
I just find that I like to find a balance between expressing myself through these obscure or creative ways and also something tangible that people can resonate with.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I feel like I pull elements out of the world of the tangible and then pull elements out of the world of experimenting and obscurity and kind of try and fuse those into something new and tangible, because it's like I take my experimental obscurity side and I try to allow for that to bring something new to the plate of something that's tangible. Like even now, like I've really been focusing on lo-fi hip hop for the past year, and I've made some other tracks that aren't lo-fi hip hop, but really I wanted to like get into it and like learn how to do it properly and just tackle that as a genre of music. And I found since day one that I don't know if I've made like this is how I feel about it. I don't know if I've made like what I would consider to be a lo-fi hip hop track at all. I feel like all of the tracks I do are in some way or another they just don't feel like a lo-fi hip hop track. They all kind of feel like something other than that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I appreciate like just as much as the next guy the YouTube lo-fi compilation, and it's great. Like it's great music. Like there's no way around it. It's great music, especially like lately I've been really listening to the Zelda one.
Yes,
Zelda.
It's so good.
It's great. And but what you like, it seems, and I don't want to trash people who do that because I've tried and I've failed most of the time.
It's still really good regardless of all else. I find it really lo-fi hip hop as a genre.
When I listen to this compilations, it seems relatively formulaic, but I know it's very difficult to do. But when I listen to what you are doing, it seems like you're really trying to, like, it sounds like you. Yeah. And it has those codes, but at the same time, you appropriate the music enough so that it stands out.
Yeah, there's also this like, I allow for all my influences to kind of bleed into it. Like I've made more like vaporwavy, mall soft lo-fi hip hop tracks than I've released because I haven't had like a tangible amount of songs and a way that I thought would be fitting for it. But that leaks its way in. I used to be in a progressive metal band and I used to play a lot of math rock. And so for me, like writing kind of, I'll say proggy, progressive, and time signature complicated sections, that kind of bleeds its way in, like on the new album. Geez, almost every song, the first song's in 4/4, the second song's in 7/4, and it's, it's just like it. I like to play around with time signatures, so that kind of bleeds its way in, which maybe wouldn't be in a standard. I'm going to produce lo-fi hip hop. What are the elements of that kind of way? And as well, my experimental phase, it really brought to life, high quality textures.
Yeah.
And the complementary texture of high quality sounds with lo-fi hip hop, I find very flattering. So,
Yeah.
all of these different elements that come from the way I see it is that, like, just the fact that I played an 8-string guitar playing progressive metal and math rock as that was really my main focus for like over half the time I've been doing music. And because now I'm doing something completely different, well, that hasn't gone anywhere. It's just expressing itself in these really particular ways that I can see and I can pick out, like in which track is it? In Late Afternoon on the new album, the song's in 5/4. So the main melody is like do 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 do, and then when the bass line comes in, it's actually going like 1 2 or 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5, and those bounce off each other. So even though the piano is like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1, the bass is like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. So they kind of like. And that groove that coexists between the straight 5/4 nonstop, like eighth notes, as opposed to the bass that kind of like drops out and then comes in and is like slightly offset, whatever. That creates a whole groove that I find in math rock, that I find in prog. They're really messing with time signatures and so. I don't know how we started this topic. I can't even remember why this is where we're at with it.
It was about what makes good music.
Well,
how did you get there? How did we get there?
You're talking about lo-fi, and I was saying something about.
You appropriate. Like it sounds like lo-fi, but it sounds like you.
And the tangible and the obscure. The tangible world of lo-fi hip hop. When I show people my music. Well, first of all, even if they ask, what kind of music do you make? And I say lo-fi hip-hop, they've already got this idea in their head that what they're going to be listening to is just chill beats.
Yeah.
And so that's sweet. And at the same time, they enter the door with this, like, I'm to expect lo-fi hip-hop, and what they're presented with is this, tangible, it's solid, there's structure, there's something you can groove to, whatever. And at the same time, these other elements that are me expressing myself through how actually much I love like progressive metal and math rock, and how I would be producing it if I didn't have to buy copious amounts of gear just to get okay results. And so I think anyway, I think that there is a balance between the obscure and the tangible is I guess how we tie this whole thing back to where we started.
It's funny because like we both come from somewhat the hip hop and also the metal side of things. Maybe a few years removed, but I remember my very first band. It was we were playing metal, like some covers and like especially like it's a shame, like almost shameful the kind What's the most shameful music you listen to? Like it's all fun and games, but stuff that you usually don't want to admit you really love.
Jeez, do you have something while I ponder? Because I know I've got a good handful of artists that I really dig. That.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's some Lady Gaga tracks I really dig.
Yeah.
Like Lady Gaga, like Paparazzi. That song's I love that song, and I think it's excellent. I think it's very unique. As a pop song, it's a very unique song. I think Lady Gaga is really cool, even though she's like mainstream. I wouldn't even say that I'm necessarily like ashamed to listen to Lady Gaga, but I think if there was any,
it's pretty cool. Like she does pretty nice music. Like, are you familiar with what's the name? I think you would like Estero.
Estero, no.
I need to give you some links. Like, it has that kind of pop feel, but it also it's really deep.
Yeah.
And very Like you have many styles, many different styles of music, a little bit like Lady Gaga, if you will.
Yeah.
And yeah, you need to check her out. It's very pop, very fun, but also excellent. Yeah, the kind of dirty secret like music that I like. It would probably be like country music, like old school country, or like Christian music. Like
I definitely have some country that
American.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, for sure, there's some country music I'm like I could listen to on my own. Although, because I grew up in like a village of 2,000 people in the woods, you know, there's this part of me that really was like I lived country culture,
Yeah.
on a very real level. So like when I listen to country music, there's just this like whole wave of my experience in life that is just like
childhood and stuff like that.
oh my god. So there's part of me that like listens to it unironically.
Yeah.
And there's this huge part of me that listens to country music totally ironically because I find it hilarious. So I guess it's kind of a balance too. Like there's some tracks I'm like, wow, this is the song Wagon Wheel. I think that's a good song if you know that one. No, well, it's a catchy song. It's good. It makes me feel like nostalgic about home.
Yeah.
And then pretty much like most country songs when I listen to them, I just listen to it ironically because I find it like if you knew where I came from, you would understand maybe. But really, I just find it hilarious to think about. You know, like
I think it has to be similar to like where I come from, like folk music from post World War II, German folk music, like or ultra cheesy kind of like my grandmother used like stuff they play at weddings here. It's I don't like that.
Yeah. But honestly, actually, I'd have to say if I have a least favorite music, since we're kind of like branching into that a little bit, my least favorite music is like, and this is going to be really specific, but this is, my own experience with it because I kind of did live sound in a theater for a while. I really don't like music that you go to, and this is broad, so bear with me. Music that you would go to a theater to see, not a concert hall, but like a theater. If you go to a theater and you see a band playing, I don't know, there's this type of like pop music, or maybe it's just the Quebecois French culture pop music that comes out of here. But like there's this type of like, I want to say like, standard band format, playing standard band format songs with a lead singer, front vocalist, standard song structure music. Yeah. I find it so boring. I can't stand it. I've done live sound for years now in a theater where that's it, so I'll go and I'll sit there and I'll have to listen to sound like them rehearse all their songs as the sound guy for like, an hour, 2 hours. They'll go and then I'll come back for the show and I'll listen again for another 2 hours to the same
same material. Good at it. Like they can be good musicians. Like it can sound clean and everything.
It's clean and it's like well done and they're well rehearsed and whatever, and it's so incredibly boring to me that I can't stand it because I can't. It's like sometimes when I think about it, I think to myself like if someone invited me, they said, "Hey, let's go to a theater. There's this band playing." I could not want to get further away from it. Actually, anyway.
I know what you mean. No, to me the worst. It's very simple. It's one name. For some reason, like I don't have any reason. It's just that her music, of course you have what they call French rap right now.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have it's not hip hop in French language. It's what today especially they call French rap. So it's a lot like very popular American hip hop, 808 that kind of stuff. But like they just kept the autotune and they put it on Caribbean style drums.
I know exactly what you're.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, again, another style of music that I just feel no interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no disrespect. Again, artistry, personal flavor. I know so many people that's all they want to listen to. It sweet,
Yeah.
or to you. But there's this huge part of myself, man, that I just like. As soon as I hear the
Yeah. And the
That-
four
that
chords
beat-
and
oh, I'm just
Oh,
done.
did you-
As soon as that rhythm comes in, and then you hear that one, like horror.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that's one that takes the cake. It has to be Shakira.
Yeah,
I hate her music. Like, she's probably the nicest girl in the world, but her music, like, I can identify her music. Like, even if I never heard the song before, I can tell right away, and I
Yeah.
hate it with all my soul. And
Yeah.
it's not bad. Like, it's well done, it's well put together, but it just doesn't speak to me. Like,
Yeah.
it does speak to me, but very annoying things.
well,
you know?
and this again comes back to the what we were saying before about how it's kind of like a subjective thing, because obviously a lot of
Yeah.
people like Shakira, and at the
She's
same
very
time you can feel totally repulsed by Shakira's music, you know.
Yeah, but a lot more people like her music than you or I. So yeah,
Well, exactly. There you go. So
and
you know,
good for her. Like, she can make millions, and I'm very, like, I'm not jealous of people who succeed in music, doing stuff that I would consider, not good or easy or whatever. Like, I'm glad. Like, maybe if I could make music like that, maybe I would. Like, it's easy
Yeah.
to say. Like, I have tried and failed many times, and it doesn't feel good, so I didn't, pursue that kind of stuff. But more power to you if you can, sell your beats online and make, X type beats and make a living like that. It beats having a 9 to 5 to me. Like,
totally.
it's great, but yeah, to me music it's something I have to do, and I have to do it a certain way, and I cannot lie. Like, I feel I would, maybe it's an excuse because I can't do it actually, and it's very possible that it's an excuse, but it feels like it has to mean something. It has to bring out what's, to challenge me. It has to,
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, if you can make music like that, great.
Yeah,
Very happy.
exactly. Yeah.
It's and I mean, the world, like, people need music like that, and they appreciate it, and makes their life easier. It eases everyday suffering, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm happy people. I'm happy if you can. Like, I'm not jealous of people who make money, even if I can consider it's not deserved, or it's too much paid. Like, people always rant about football, soccer player, like, oh, they make millions and whatever. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. What they can make, if you can make it, make it. If you can do it, make it. Make the money. It's great. They're happy, I hope.
Well, and at the end of the day, as long as someone's doing that's something that works for them, makes them happy, and doesn't like bother someone else, I think that it's sweet. Power to you. Exactly. It's like I can't stand to go to a concert hall, or not a concert hall. I can't stand to go to like a theater and see a band perform in that way. And at the same time, they can still sell out the room, and there's so many people that want it. And sweet, if it makes you happy and it makes people happy, cool. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how would be the world if? That's a good question. How would be the world if it didn't have, easy music? Like, if everyone would listen to, doesn't make any sense. Basically.
It doesn't. There isn't enough hipsters in the world to consume obscure music. There's got to be some people that take what the masses are giving them. I like to see it as like like you can go to Walmart. Do you guys have Walmart in France?
We don't, but I can kind of guess.
Yeah, well, you can go to your general warehouse. They sell the same clothes all over the country and buy clothing, or you can go to a place that's got a more refined taste for more refined flavor, and I think music's the same. It's like there's refined flavors of music,
Yeah.
And I guess the way I like to see it is that like I dig into the music that I like, kind of like dissect little elements. Like, why is it that I like this? I like this part of it. This, something I really really like is like a lot of very like almost like poppy staccato notes in sequence.
Yeah.
So like just really fast like staccato notes on something, and I find that that's something I like in guitar music. That's something I like in music that's produced and whatever. And so dissecting these little elements and being able to pick them out, and that's why like now I say I make lo-fi hip hop, because that to me is the core of it. Having a lo-fi hip hop beat is the element that ties everything together, and then from each thing I kind of like build different things on it. Yeah. So I think that we take the refined tastes of a bunch of different things as musicians that are just digging deeper every day.
Yeah.
We dig deep. We find something that we resonate with, kind of like take a little bit from it, and over the years we accumulate all of these little refined details out of refined music that isn't necessarily people will enjoy it right away. The general public will enjoy it right away, and as a result, we end up creating a refined music out of more refined music, and the music gets deeper. It evolves upon itself, and I think that that's an important part of evolution in music, is that we evolve, and then we learn from the people who have evolved music, who have pushed it forward, and we take the ways that they pushed it forward, and we evolve upon that. And to me, that's always been an important part of creating, is trying to expand upon what it is that we already know, what it is that we already have.
Yeah, I think you got this right. It's all about, like, to me it's the same. It's not about money or career or something. It's about something that you're born with, and you're part of that history.
Yeah.
And you just move it forward as much as you can, as best you can, and I think it's a nice way to wrap this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, like, or post any comments. So till next time, this was the Smallbrain Podcast, episode 12. Mackenzie and Emmanuel. See you next time. Peace.
Leave a comment below if you want to ask some stuff, or if you want to come on the podcast and talk about stuff like this. That would be sweet too. Reach out to us. Say hey.
Yeah, that's right.